The thought of walking through a forest today gives me the creeps.
It's dead.
But knowing some of the deadliest animals to ever exist aren't around anymore, that's a relief. I'm talking about creatures so dangerous they had no natural enemies until extinction took them out.
With these incredibly powerful forelimbs, it would pull down its prey.
Poisonous predators, ruthless hunters, and beasts so powerful they ruled their environments with no competition. I can't help but wonder, if they were still here, would we even make it? One of the first ones that comes to mind is the Barbary lion. This was basically a monster with a mane. This thing was an apex predator on steroids, easily the biggest, meanest lion to ever walk the planet. Each of these, fully grown, was almost 600 pounds, over 10 feet long, and packed with the kind of muscle that made it look like a prehistoric beast. Regular lions hunt in groups, but not this one. This one doesn't need help. The Barbary lion was a one-man army, built for pure, unrelenting violence. The freaks of nature not only resided in the forests, but also the mountains of North Africa. Food wasn't easy to come by, so these lions hunted anything that moved: massive deer, wild boars, and even Atlas bears. Yeah, this lion hunted other predators for food. It wasn't even about survival, it was about dominance. And if prey got scarce, these lions had zero hesitation about rolling into villages and dragging off anyone who wasn't fast enough. Unlike modern lions, which mostly avoid humans, Barbary lions saw us as just another menu option. Now here's where it gets even crazier. These were the same lions that the Romans threw into the Colosseum because they were the most ruthless killers they could find. If you got sent into the arena with a Barbary lion, you weren't fighting, you were just waiting to die. These things would tear through gladiators, criminals, and even other animals without breaking a sweat. The Romans didn't just want a lion. They wanted a nightmare made of claws and teeth, and the Barbary lion delivered. Unfortunately, by the 1800s, European hunters started wiping them out for trophies. The last wild one was shot in the 1940s, and just like that, the deadliest lion to ever live was gone. If they were still around today, they'd make every other land predator look like a joke. But thankfully, the only ones around now are the ones animal conservation facilities were able to breed in captivity. None of them exist in the wild. If they did, the wild might have looked a lot different than it does right now. But at least with this lion you see them and hear them coming. The Titanoboa, though, was a master of disguise, but in no way was it subtle. As someone who thinks anaconda-sized snakes are terrifying, I wasn't ready to find out the things I did about the Titanoboa, and why should I be traumatized by this information alone? This thing was an absolute nightmare. At nearly 50 feet long and weighing over a ton, it was the largest snake to ever exist. To put that into perspective, it was as long as a semi-truck and thicker than a grown man's waist. If this thing was alive today, you wouldn't just be avoiding swamps, you'd be staying far, far away from any body of water big enough to hide a sea monster. Titanoboa ruled the hot, humid swamps of prehistoric South America around 60 million years ago, right after the dinosaurs disappeared. Yeah, they outlived the dinosaurs. Today's anacondas and pythons strangle their prey. Titanoboa took it to a whole new level. With over 400 psi of crushing power, this snake could flatten bones, stop a heartbeat in seconds, and turn fully grown crocodiles into lifeless noodles. Scientists say it had a bite force comparable to a crocodile's, meaning if it wanted to, it could just clamp down and not even bother squeezing. Its favorite meal? Giant turtles and prehistoric crocodiles. Yeah, actual prehistoric crocodiles. And it wasn't a sneaky little ambush predator. Titanoboa was the king of its environment. It didn't hide in fear of anything because nothing could take it down. If it wanted to, it could have slithered onto land and dragged a human-sized animal into the water without breaking a sweat. The only reason this beast isn't still around is that the planet eventually cooled down too much for it to survive. Titanoboa thrived in extreme heat, and when the global temperature dropped, it just couldn't keep up. But if climate change ever swings things back in its favor, well, let's just say you'd want to take a detour past South America. While you're at it, it would have been best to avoid the colder regions too, because that's where the woolly mammoth was. This was as close to a fur-covered tank with tusks as you can get. This animal might look like an oversized elephant, but it was actually a prehistoric machine built to survive in the most brutal, frozen hellscapes the Ice Age could throw at it. Standing up to 13 feet tall at the shoulder and weighing as much as 15,000 pounds, it made today's elephants look like tiny, hairless versions of their tougher ancestors. And those tusks, curved to nearly 15 feet long, they weren't just for show. Mammoths used them to fight off predators, plow through ice, and probably wreck anything dumb enough to get in their way. Living in herds across North America, Europe, and Siberia, woolly mammoths had to deal with saber-toothed cats, dire wolves, and even humans with spears. But they weren't easy targets. These were highly intelligent, aggressive animals that could stomp a predator into the dirt if it got too close. And let's not forget about their attitude. Imagine a 15,000-pound animal charged up on survival instincts and built to bulldoze anything in its way. If you got on the wrong side of a woolly mammoth, you weren't outrunning it. One of the craziest things about this animal is these things were prime targets for early humans. Our ancestors had to be either incredibly skilled or completely insane to take one down. A single, angry mammoth could obliterate an entire hunting party, yet we somehow managed to hunt them to extinction. The last wild mammoths disappeared around 4,000 years ago, but scientists are actually working on bringing them back. Yep, they're splicing mammoth DNA with Asian elephants in a real-life Jurassic Park experiment. If that actually happens, well, let's just say zoos better have some reinforced fencing. Because if a mammoth decides it doesn't like being poked and prodded, there's not a whole lot that's stopping it from turning its enclosure into a pile of rubble. And if you thought the danger only lurked in the ice and the forests, you'd be wrong. The ocean wasn't safe either. That's where Megalodon lived. This was the largest predatory shark to ever exist, reaching 60 feet long and weighing up to 50 tons. That's nearly 3 times the size of a great white. And unlike modern sharks, it didn't just rely on stealth. It dominated the ocean with sheer power. Megalodon's bite force was estimated at over 40,000 pounds per square inch, making it one of the most powerful bites of any creature in history. For comparison, a great white has around 4,000 psi, meaning Megalodon could bite down 10 times harder. Its jaws could open wide enough to swallow an adult human whole, and its 7-inch long teeth were built to crush bone. Fossil evidence shows that it didn't just bite into its prey, it completely destroyed it. Its main food source was whales, and it hunted them with brutal efficiency. Scientists have found whale bones with deep Megalodon bite marks, proving that it didn't just scavenge, it actively took down massive marine mammals. It likely targeted the fins first, immobilizing its prey before delivering a final, crushing bite. With its size and speed, almost nothing in the ocean was safe. Even other predators, like prehistoric sharks and giant sea reptiles, would have struggled to compete with it. Unlike deep-sea creatures, Megalodon preferred warm, shallow waters, which meant it hunted near coastlines. If it was still alive today, beaches wouldn't be safe. This wasn't a shark that stayed hidden in the deep. It likely used ambush tactics, attacking from below with explosive force. Once it had a target, escape was nearly impossible. So why did it disappear? About 3.6 million years ago, ocean temperatures dropped due to climate change, and food sources started to decline. Many whale species migrated to colder regions where Megalodon couldn't survive. With fewer prey options and competition from rising predators like orcas, its population crashed. Eventually, it went extinct, leaving only fossilized teeth and bones behind. Despite the scientific evidence, some people believe Megalodon might still exist. There have been claims of massive, unidentified sharks spotted in deep waters, but no real proof has ever surfaced. If Megalodon were alive today, it would likely be seen more often, especially given its preference for shallow waters. But if it somehow survived, the ocean would be a much more dangerous place. While I'm on the topic of ancient animals that were a nightmare to be around, I have to talk about Spinosaurus, one of the most terrifying predators to ever exist. Spinosaurus was a complete evolutionary monster, dominating both land and water. Spinosaurus was the undisputed apex predator of North Africa around 95 million years ago. But what made it so deadly wasn't just its size, it was the way it hunted and lived, adapting to an environment filled with other massive predators. Unlike other theropods, Spinosaurus had dense, heavy bones, which helped it stay submerged while hunting. This is something seen in modern aquatic predators like penguins and hippos, proving that Spinosaurus spent most of its time in the water. Some scientists even believe it had webbed feet, making it more of a swimming predator than a running one. It likely used its long, crocodile-like snout to detect vibrations in the water, similar to how modern alligators sense movement. Once it locked onto a target, escape was nearly impossible. And Spinosaurus wasn't just eating fish. Fossil evidence suggests it took down small to medium-sized dinosaurs, especially those that wandered too close to the water's edge. It could use its giant clawed hands to grab prey, or simply drag them underwater and let them drown. It wasn't the kind of predator you could just run from. If you were near its territory, you were already in danger and kind of already out of time to get away from it. Its fossils have been found across Morocco, Egypt, and Algeria, but for decades, scientists didn't have a complete picture of how it looked. Early reconstructions showed it standing upright like a T-Rex, but newer discoveries suggest it was far more aquatic, streamlined, and built for ambush hunting. If Spinosaurus was still around today, no river, lake, or coastal area would be safe. This wasn't just a dinosaur, it was a prehistoric nightmare that could kill on land and in the water, and nothing in its territory would have stood a chance. Well, one did come close though. It was the Tyrannosaurus Rex. Because of pop culture, we've all become comfortable with the thought of a T-Rex roaming the earth. I can't get over their arms being so small. It's pretty funny, but if one of them were right in front of me, there would be no laughing. Tyrannosaurus Rex was the king of late Cretaceous North America, and it earned that title through sheer brute force. This wasn't just another giant dinosaur. It was a 40-foot-long, 9-ton killing machine with the strongest bite force of any land animal ever. Scientists estimate it could bite down with 12,000 pounds of force, enough to crush bone like it was a potato chip. This wasn't just a predator that killed its prey, it tore through it like a wrecking ball. Everything about T-Rex was built for destruction. It had a massive skull filled with 60 serrated teeth, some the size of bananas. Unlike other theropods that slashed at their prey, T-Rex used its teeth like built-in sledgehammers, crunching through flesh and bone in a single bite. Fossil evidence shows that it could take down Triceratops, hadrosaurs, and even other T-Rex, because when you're at the top of the food chain, sometimes the only competition left is yourself. And let's get back to those tiny arms. Everyone loves to joke about them, but they were anything but useless. Each arm was still about 3 feet long and had 2 thick, muscular claws that could lift over 400 pounds. They weren't for grabbing prey, they were for holding it in place while that bone-crushing bite finished the job. T-Rex was shockingly fast for its size. It wasn't chasing things down like a raptor, but it didn't need to. It could reach speeds of 15 to 20 miles per hour, fast enough that if you were caught in the open, you weren't outrunning it. And even if you somehow dodged that first attack, T-Rex was built for endurance, meaning it could just keep coming after you until you ran out of energy. There's also evidence it had incredible senses. Its eyes faced forward, giving it binocular vision. It could see in 3D, just like us, meaning prey had nowhere to hide. It also had one of the best senses of smell of any dinosaur, possibly even stronger than a modern vulture. If something was injured or rotting miles away, T-Rex could track it down with predator-level precision. For years, there's been a debate about whether T-Rex was more of a hunter or a scavenger. But let's be real, when you're that big and powerful, you don't have to choose. It was an opportunistic apex predator. If it needed to chase something down, it could. If it found a half-eaten corpse, why waste the energy hunting when you've got a free meal? It didn't matter if it killed its food or stole it. Tyrannosaurus rex ruled North America up until the asteroid impact 66 million years ago, which wiped out most large dinosaurs. If that extinction never happened, there's no telling how much bigger and deadlier it could have become. Even now, with no living predators left to compare, T-Rex still holds the crown as one of the most fearsome creatures to ever walk the earth. But what if something that dangerous could also fly? That would basically be what the dodo bird was like. The dodo might not seem like a predator, but make no mistake, his bird was built for destruction in its own way. It ruled Mauritius, an island where it had no competition, no fear, and no reason to run from anything. Standing 3 feet tall and weighing up to 40 pounds, this thing was a walking battering ram with a massive, hooked beak strong enough to crack bone. If it got hold of something, it wasn't letting go. You wouldn't want to be on the receiving end of a dodo's bite. That beak could crush hard-shelled nuts with ease, meaning human fingers or anything fleshy would have been nothing. Some reports suggest they were far more aggressive than their reputation lets on, especially when defending their nests. Unfortunately, its biggest weakness was its overconfidence. With no natural predators, the dodo had no fear of anything, which made it the perfect target. Sailors hunted them for food, and invasive animals devoured their eggs right out of the nest. In less than a century, one of the most unexpectedly deadly birds was wiped out. Something like this not existing today is a good thing, right? Well, it might not stay that way for long. Scientists are working on bringing the dodo back using DNA from its closest living relative, the Nicobar pigeon. If they succeed, we might see dodos walking the earth again, but this time, maybe they'll come back angrier and ready for revenge, kind of like the thylacine. The thylacine, or Tasmanian tiger, was a cold, calculated predator that wiped out whatever it could catch. It was an unrelenting hunter that didn't need speed or brute strength to dominate its territory. It was built for endurance, stalking prey until they were too tired to keep running. Once it got close, there was no escape. This predator didn't rely on packs or ambushes. It was a one-on-one executioner. It had razor-sharp teeth, capable of crushing bone, and an unhinging jaw that opened up to 80 degrees, far wider than any modern predator. That meant it could bite deep into flesh and hold on until its prey stopped moving. It didn't need to thrash or tear, it just bit down and waited for its victim to suffocate. By the early 1900s, the thylacine was hunted to extinction, and the last known one died in captivity in 1936. Now, scientists are working to bring it back. Researchers are extracting DNA from preserved specimens and attempting to resurrect the species through genetic engineering. If they succeed, Tasmania might once again have its silent, unstoppable predator, and this time humans won't be able to wipe it out so easily. But one that everyone hopes never makes a comeback is moa. The moa was a towering, unstoppable force that ruled New Zealand's forests for thousands of years. The biggest species, the South Island giant moa, stood up to 12 feet tall and weighed over 500 pounds. Unlike most giant birds, it didn't have even the smallest hint of wings. It was all legs and raw power. Most people assume a flightless bird is easy prey, but the moa wasn't built to run. It was built to bulldoze through anything in its path. These birds could crash through dense forests, knocking down small trees and bushes as they plowed forward. Their legs were so strong that they could shatter bones with a single kick, which made them a nightmare for anything that got too close. The moa's biggest advantage was its size and endurance. But what really made the moa terrifying was that it had no natural predators, except one. The Haast's eagle, the largest eagle to ever exist, hunted them from above, slamming into their backs at speeds of 50 miles per hour with talons the size of a tiger's claws. If a moa wasn't paying attention, it could get its spine crushed in an instant. But that was the only way to take one down. No land animal could even come close to threatening them. Then humans arrived. The Maori hunted moa with precision, using spears and fire to drive them into traps. Unlike most animals, which could at least fight back or flee, the moa had no defense against coordinated attacks. In just a few hundred years, they were completely wiped out, and with them, the Haast's eagle also vanished, its main food source gone. If they didn't, we might have had to spend most of our lives indoors. But the saber-toothed cat would get us all there too. Better known as Smilodon, was a precision-engineered killing machine that made modern lions and tigers look like house pets. This thing was built for one thing and one thing only: bringing down prey in the most brutal way possible. Unlike today's big cats, which use speed and suffocation to take down their prey, Smilodon didn't waste time with long chases or drawn-out struggles. It was short, stocky, and pure muscle, built for ambushes and raw power. A modern tiger might weigh 600 pounds at most, but the largest Smilodon species, Smilodon populator, could reach over 1,000 pounds. It didn't just tackle prey, it flattened them. The real nightmare was its canines, nearly a foot long and razor sharp. But these weren't just for show. Smilodon had a powerful bite, but not in the way you'd expect. Unlike lions, which clamped down on the throat to suffocate their prey, Smilodon's jaws could open up to 120 degrees, allowing it to drive those massive teeth straight into soft tissue. Once they were in, it only took a single precise bite to sever arteries, pierce organs, and end the fight instantly. This was a cat that didn't need speed or stamina. It needed one moment. It would wait in dense vegetation, lunge with explosive force, knock its target to the ground, and end the fight in seconds. Prehistoric horses, bison, giant ground sloths, nothing was safe. Even massive mammoths and mastodons had to watch their backs, because a pack of Smilodons working together could take down animals several times their size. Even humans weren't off the menu. Early people in the Americas definitely ran into these things, and there's no way every encounter ended well. Unlike modern big cats, which usually avoid humans, Smilodon had no reason to fear anything. If you were in its territory and it was hungry, you were a target. So what happened? Climate change, loss of prey, and competition with humans all contributed to its downfall. By around 10,000 years ago, it was gone. But if it was still around today, let's just say going for a walk in the woods wouldn't be the same, because you'd never hear this thing coming until it was already too late. Could you survive life with this, or any of the other deadly extinct animals in this video?